For 3 days, the desert wind was the only thing talking to the boy. He sat in the shadow of a wrecked 98 Fat Boy, guarding a man who had traded his own safety to avoid hitting a nobody Orphan in the road. Most people would have run for help, but this boy knew better. He knew the black sedan that pushed the biker off the ridge would be back to hide the evidence. He didn't just wait. He hunted. In his pocket was a jagged piece of chrome, the literal smoking gun that linked the accident to the town's most powerful man. As the roar of 210 Hell's Angels finally vibrated the canyon floor, the boy didn't celebrate. He stood up, clutched that piece of chrome, and blocked the path. He had a code to honor, a debt to pay, and a secret that was about to turn 210 bikers into a force of absolute justice. If you've ever been the only one who believed something was wrong, drop a comment and hit subscribe. Because what Eli does in the next 4 minutes is going to restore your faith in people who refuse to look away. I kept it charged. That's what Eli said when he handed Cade the phone. Cade's eyes had only been open for 11 seconds. He didn't know where he was. He didn't know who this kid was. His right leg was screaming, and his head felt like it had been split open, which it had been 3 days ago when his Road King went over the canyon edge at 72 miles an hour. But the boy was holding a phone. Cade's phone. The screen showed a voicemail notification. 47 seconds. Tuesday, 11:23 p.m. "There's a solar panel in Earl's kit," Eli said. His voice was flat, precise. The voice of a child who had stopped expecting adults to listen a long time ago. "I've listened to it 6 times. I've memorized it. But I think you need to hear his voice." Cade took the phone. His hands were shaking. The boy noticed, didn't comment. Cade pressed play. The voice that came through the speaker was smooth, reasonable. The kind of voice that sounded like it belonged in a county commission meeting. "Harlow, or whoever finds this, doesn't matter. I know who you are, and I know why you were on 376. The land records you pulled from the registry? There's nothing there that changes anything. The trust closes on Friday. Probate court, 9 a.m. Nothing you can do about it now." A pause. Then, "And here's what you need to understand. The sheriff's department has logged your little ride as a single vehicle accident. No witnesses. Deer strike, most likely. That's the report. If you're alive, which I'm betting you're not, you walk away from Sagebrush. You walk away from Ember Creek. And you stay walked away. Because the next time someone asks questions about that land, the answer is going to cost more than a set of handlebars." Another pause. Longer this time. "Friday, 9 a.m. It's done." The voicemail ended. Cade didn't move for 6 seconds. Then he pressed play again. He listened to the whole thing a second time, eyes closed this time. His jaw was tight. The muscle in his cheek was working. When it ended the second time, he opened his eyes and looked at the boy. "You've been here 3 days." "Yes." "You didn't leave?" "No." Cade's voice dropped. "Why not?" Eli was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. His right hand went to the brass key hanging on a shoelace around his neck. He touched it once. Then he looked at Cade's vest, at the patch. "Earl said if a man wears the wings, you don't let the fire go out." Cade stared at him. The boy couldn't have weighed more than 75 pounds. His jacket was gray canvas, stitched at both elbows with mismatched thread. His face was thin and evaluating. Dark circles under his eyes so deep they looked structural. His boots were too big. The leather was cracked at the toe. "Earl's dead," the boy added. Matter of fact. 5 months, heart attack. He was the mechanic at the home. He taught me how to build a wind block, how to filter water, how to check if a fuel line's leaking, and seal it with clay if you don't have anything else. The boy pointed at the twisted wreckage of Cade's Road King, barely visible behind a pile of canyon rock. Your bike had a leak. I fixed it on day 1. Didn't want it catching fire. Cade's throat was dry. He tried to speak. It came out as a rasp. What's your name? Eli. Eli Dunbar. Where are your parents, Eli? Dead. 4 years. Car accident on Route 376. Same road you crashed on. Eli said it the way someone might report the weather. No self-pity, just facts. I'm at Sagebrush Youth Home, 1382 Ridgeline East Road. 11 kids left. Used to be 22. Cade's eyes sharpened. Sagebrush. Yes. The man on the voicemail, Douglas Calloway. He's the one closing your home. Yes. He's also the one who ran me off the road. It wasn't a question. Eli nodded anyway. I think so. I found this. The boy reached into the inner zip pocket of his jacket. He pulled out a small object wrapped in a torn page from a field notebook. He unwrapped it carefully. A curved shard of red-tinted automotive lens cover, maybe 3.5 inches. A chrome trim clip was still attached, stamped with a parts identifier. Taillight fragment, Eli said. From a 2022 Cadillac Escalade. I found it at the base of the canyon wall, 6 feet from the tire marks on Route 376. He pulled out a second object, a silver cufflink, rectangular, engraved. DC, Eli said, turning it so Cade could see the monogram. Broken hinge pin, found it on the shoulder, 4 feet from the skid mark your front tire left. A third object. Flat. Hard. Clay tread impression. I pressed canyon floor clay against the tire mark on the shoulder. Let it dry for 6 hours. It's a premium SUV tire profile. Michelin Cross Climate 2. Fits a 2022 Escalade. Eli set all 3 items on the ground between them. Lined them up. Neat. Precise. Earl told me, evidence stays with you. Never leave evidence where someone else can find it first. Cade looked at this 11-year-old boy. At the evidence laid out like a prosecutor's exhibit. At the key on the shoelace around his neck. At the boots that were 2 sizes too large. How long have you been trying to get help? 3 days. 4 tries. Eli's voice didn't change. Still flat. Still factual. Day 1. Flagged down a truck at the Route 376 junction. Driver slowed. Looked at me. Drove off. Day 2, morning. Gas station attendant saw my sagebrush badge. Said he'd call Mr. Calloway to help. I ran. Day 2, afternoon. Tourist couple let me use their satellite phone. Called 911. Deputy showed up. Deputy Trosper. He checked the canyon for 8 minutes. Came back and said there was nothing there. Told me to go back to the home. He called Douglas after I left. Eli paused. Day 3. This morning. HOA cleanup crew. A woman named Nadine. She listened. She was kind. She said I should call Douglas Calloway because he takes care of kids from Sagebrush. She offered to dial him for me. His jaw tightened, just barely. I ran. Cade closed his eyes. When he opened them again, his voice was rough. Controlled. The voice of a man who had been a road captain for 24 years and knew exactly what needed to happen next. Give me the phone. Eli handed it to him. Cade dialed. 1 number. 2 rings. A voice answered. Deep. Gravelly. awake. "Spike, it's Cade." A pause on the other end. "Cade, Jesus, where the hell have you been? You were supposed to check in Tuesday night. Box Elder Canyon, Route 376 South, mile point 4.7. I'm down. Right leg, head injury. Been here since Tuesday." Silence. Then, "Who?" "Deliberate. County Commissioner named Douglas Calloway. Same man who's closing the Sagebrush Youth Home on a charity fraud. Land trust exploitation. He's filed at probate court Friday morning, 9 a.m. I've got a voicemail confession on my phone. I've got a kid here, 11 years old, who's been running interference for 3 days alone and collected physical evidence off the crash site." Another pause. Longer this time. When Spike spoke again, his voice was different. Colder. "Say no more. How many roads into your position?" "One fire access track, east side. Look for a signal flare on the rim." "How bad are you?" Cade looked down at his leg, at the improvised splint, his own boot, Eli's belt, torn strips of fabric, at the bandage on his temple made from the boy's undershirt. "I need a hospital, but the kid needs the filing stopped first. 9 a.m. Friday, Hawthorne Probate Court. We'll stop it, and then we're getting you out of there." Cade's voice dropped. "Spike, the boy. He's got 6 weeks before his birthday ages him out of placement priority. He's got nowhere to go." A longer pause. "We'll talk about that too." "Good." Cade ended the call. He looked at Eli. The boy was watching him. Steady. Evaluating. His right hand was on the key again. "They're coming," Cade said. "How many?" "All of them." Eli nodded once, like he'd been expecting that answer. Then he stood up, walked to the canyon wall, climbed the 15 feet to the east rim with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd been doing it for 3 days. Cade watched him disappear over the edge. 2 minutes later, he heard the distant rumble. Not the rattle and scatter of random engines. One sound, synchronized, growing from the north like weather arriving. The ground transmitted it before the air did. Cade felt it in his bones. Eli stood on the canyon rim holding the signal flare. He'd been watching the road for 43 minutes. The sound was getting closer. Not random, deliberate, coordinated. Then he saw them. The first bike appeared around the Route 376 bend. Then a second. Then 10. Then 30. They filled the fire access track in disciplined formation. A river of black and chrome and leather, pouring toward him like a slow-moving storm. 210 motorcycles. Eli raised the flare, pulled the ignition cord. Red smoke bloomed into the October sky. The lead bike stopped. The formation stopped behind it in sequence, not chaotic, not scattered. They stopped the way they rode, with precision. The lead rider dismounted. He was 55, maybe. Silver beard, broad shoulders. His vest read President. Road name stitched below it, Spike. He walked toward the canyon rim, alone. He stopped 10 feet from Eli. Eli said, "Show me the bell." Spike didn't ask what he meant. He reached down to the frame of his Road King. A small brass bell hung from the left frame rail, just below the engine. He tilted the bike so Eli could see it clearly. Eli looked for 3 full seconds. Then he reached into his jacket. He pulled out a second Guardian bell. Brass. Small. Identical. "I found this in the canyon. I kept it for him." He held it out. Spike took it, closed his hand around it. His jaw tightened. "Earl," Eli said. "Old mechanic at the home. He told me, the bell knows." I didn't understand it when he said it. I think I do now. Spike looked at this 73-pound boy standing on a canyon rim in boots 2 sizes too large, who had just stopped 210 motorcycles to verify their intentions. "You kept him alive for 3 days," Spike said. "Yes." "Lead us in." Cade was sitting up when they reached him. It had taken 4 brothers to get a stretcher down the 22-foot drop. Tank, ex-combat medic, 22 years with the club, went down first. He took one look at Cade's leg and swore under his breath. "Fibula's broken. Clean break, but it's been 3 days. We need to move you now." "I know." Tank looked at the splint, at the boot, the belt, the torn fabric. "Who did this?" Cade nodded toward Eli. The boy was standing 15 feet away, arms crossed, watching. Tank turned, looked at him, then back at Cade. "Kid did field dressing? Kid kept me breathing. Built a wind block, filtered water, rationed food. Sealed my fuel leak with canyon clay so the bike wouldn't catch fire. Found evidence. Made 4 attempts to get help. Got routed to the villain every single time. Then played me a voicemail that's going to put a county commissioner in federal custody." Tank stared at him. Then he stood up, walked over to Eli, crouched down to the boy's level. "What's your name, son?" "Eli." "Eli. I'm Tank. I was a combat medic for 11 years before I joined this chapter. What you did, the splint, the bandaging, keeping his core temperature stable, that's textbook field medicine. Where'd you learn it?" "Earl. He was a Marine, Vietnam. He showed me." Tank nodded slowly. "Earl taught you right." He stood up, looked back at Spike. "We need to get him to Hawthorne Regional. Leg needs to be set properly. Head wound needs sutures. But he's stable. The kid's the reason." Spike walked over, stood next to Tank. "Eli," he said. "Cade told me about the evidence. Can you show me?" Eli reached into his jacket, pulled out the 3 items, laid them on the ground. Taillight fragment, cufflink, clay impression. Spike crouched down, studied them, didn't touch. Then he looked up at a younger brother standing behind him. Tech-savvy, mid-30s, road name, Rook. "Photograph these, every angle, then bag them separately. Chain of custody starts now." Rook pulled out his phone, started shooting. Spike looked at Eli. "You said Douglas Calloway is closing your home, Sagebrush Youth Home." "Yes. 11 kids left. Funding cut 7 weeks ago. Meals down to 2 a day for the last month. The home sits on 47 acres. There's a trust. If the home closes, the land gets liquidated. Douglas chairs the liquidation committee." Another brother stepped forward, older, late 50s, calm. Road name, Dagger. "I'm a land surveyor," Dagger said. "Retired. I know trust structures. If Douglas controls both the budget that makes the closure necessary and the committee that liquidates the asset, that's a textbook conflict of interest." "There's more," Eli said. He looked at Spike. "Cade said there was a contact at the county land registry. He'd pulled partial records. He was riding out to Sagebrush to ask questions when Douglas ran him off the road." Spike's expression didn't change, but his voice dropped. "Where's that file?" "Saddlebag," Cade said from the stretcher. "Left side, folder, blue." Rook walked to the crashed bike, pulled the folder, opened it. He read for 30 seconds. Then he looked up. "This is a Mineral County Land Trust filing. Sagebrush Youth Home Charitable Trust. Established 1962. Current holding, 47 acres. Appraised value, $3.6 million. Beneficiary clause states that if the home closes, proceeds from liquidation must be directed to county social services." He flipped a page. "There's a second parcel listed here, 22 acres, Adjacent property. Transferred to Callaway Advisory LLC 2 years ago. Who owned it before? Spike asked. Rook scanned the document. Miriam Jett, Douglas Callaway's great-aunt. She died 8 months after the transfer. Placement was listed as Ember Creek Memory Care Center. The air in the canyon changed. Spike looked at Dagger. Dagger's jaw was tight. That's the same playbook. Voluntary guardian. Asset transfer. Remove the person from the equation. There's more, Rook said. He was flipping through pages now. Faster. There's a memo of understanding clipped to the back. Pinnacle Land Partners. Reno-based development firm. Offer $3.6 million for a 69-acre canyon resort development. The 69 acres equals Sagebrush's 47 plus Miriam's 22. He looked up. There's a fee schedule on page 7. Callaway Advisory, LLC listed as transaction facilitator. Commission, $431,200. Nobody spoke. Spike stood up, looked at the brothers, then at Eli. How old are you, son? 11. And you've been keeping this man alive for 3 days while collecting evidence that's going to stop a $500,000 fraud. 431,200, Eli corrected. And it's not just fraud. It's connected. Douglas caused the crash to stop Cade from reaching Sagebrush. Douglas is closing Sagebrush to force the land sale. It's the same spider web. Spike stared at him. Then he looked at Cade. Cade's voice was quiet. The voicemail, Spike. Play it. Spike listened to the full 47 seconds. When it ended, he didn't move for 5 full seconds. Then he handed the phone back to Eli. We need that filed as evidence. But first, we need to stop that 9 a.m. filing tomorrow. He turned to another brother. Older, late 50s. Quiet. Road name, Snake. You're still licensed, right? Snake nodded. Retired attorney. Bar active in Nevada. I can draft an emergency petition for a stay. How fast? 2 hours if I start now, but I'll need to file it tonight. Hawthorne Probate Court. Judge Evers hears emergency motions Thursday evenings if there's cause. There's cause, Spike said. He looked at the evidence on the ground, at the voicemail on Eli's phone, at the blue folder in Rook's hand. We've got a voicemail confession, physical evidence of deliberate vehicular assault, a memo of understanding showing financial motive, a pattern victim with the same asset transfer structure. And we've got, he looked at Eli, an 11-year-old witness who kept meticulous chain of custody on crash site evidence for 72 hours. Snake nodded. That'll do it. I'll draft the petition. Conflict of interest. Fraudulent inducement of closure. Bad faith financial arrangement predating the decision to close. I'll cite the MOU with Pinnacle Land Partners and the previous victim transfer. Judge Evers will grant the stay if I can get it in front of her tonight. Then move. Snake turned, headed for his bike. Spike looked at Tank. Get Cade to Hawthorne Regional. Full workup. I want medical documentation of every injury. Time-stamped. Photographed. That's evidence too. Tank nodded. On it. Spike looked at Rook. You're with Snake. You've got the financial records. He'll need them for the filing. Copy that. Spike turned to Dagger. I need you to map the 69-acre parcel. I want boundaries. I want easements. I want every legal detail that proves this deal doesn't work without both parcels. Dagger was already pulling out his phone. Give me an hour. Then Spike looked at Eli. Where are the other kids? The 11 at Sagebrush. Still there. The director, Mrs. Avery. She's trying to keep it running, but the budget's gone. She's paying for food out of her own account. Does Douglas know you're here? In this canyon? Deputy Trosper might have told him I called 911. Nadine definitely called him this morning. So yes, probably. Spike's expression darkened. Then Douglas knows someone's asking questions. And if he's smart, he's moving faster than we are. He pulled out his phone. Dialed. It rang twice. Sheriff Grayson. This is Vern Ramsey, Hells Angels, Nevada, chapter president. I'm calling to report a deliberate vehicular assault on Route 376, mile point 4.7, committed Tuesday evening by Carteret County Commissioner Douglas Calloway. I'm also calling to report an active charity fraud involving the Sagebrush Youth Homeland Trust, with a financial motive exceeding $400,000. We have physical evidence, we have a recorded confession, and we have an 11-year-old material witness who is currently at risk. A pause. No, Sheriff. This is not a courtesy call. This is a notification. We're filing an emergency stay with probate court tonight to halt tomorrow's liquidation filing. You can meet us at the courthouse in Hawthorne, or you can read about it in the federal complaint we're filing Monday morning. Your choice. He ended the call, looked at Eli. You're not going back to Sagebrush tonight. You're coming with us. Eli's hand went to the key. The other kids will be safer if Douglas doesn't know you're the one who kept that phone charged. Spike's voice was firm, not unkind. You did your job, son. You kept Kate alive. You preserved evidence. You tried 4 times to get help from a system that failed you 4 times. Now it's our turn. He crouched down. Eye level. Earl taught you how to build a wind block, how to filter water, how to fix a fuel leak. He taught you not to leave evidence where someone else could find it first. That's good teaching, survival teaching. He paused. But there's one more thing Earl would have told you if he'd had the chance. When the Brotherhood shows up, you let them carry the weight for a while. Eli looked at him. His eyes were dark, exhausted. The eyes of a child who had spent 3 days doing the work of a grown man. Okay, he said quietly. Spike stood up, looked at the brothers. Cade goes to Hawthorne Regional. Snake and Rook file the emergency stay tonight. Dagger maps the parcel. The rest of you, we're riding to Sagebrush Youth Home. I want eyes on those kids until this is over. If Douglas makes a move, I want to know about it before he gets there. He looked at Eli one more time. You ready? Eli nodded. Spike held out his hand. Eli took it. Thursday, 7:14 p.m. Mineral County Probate Court, Hawthorne, Nevada. Judge Patricia Evers had been on the bench for 19 years. She'd heard emergency motions on Thursday nights for the last 11 of them. Domestic violence restraining orders, mostly. Emergency custody. The occasional guardianship dispute. She had never seen a courtroom gallery filled with 73 Hells Angels. They sat in disciplined rows. Leather vests. Patches. Road names stitched across broad shoulders. Arms crossed. Silent. Not a single one of them moved when she entered. Snake stood at the petitioner's table. 61 years old. Retired attorney. Bar active. His vest was folded on the chair behind him. He wore a pressed shirt and tie beneath his leather jacket. Across the aisle, Douglas Calloway sat alone. No attorney. He'd gotten the emergency notice 47 minutes ago. He'd driven 91 miles in 73 minutes. His county commissioner windbreaker was still on. American flag lapel pin. Pressed khakis. He looked calm. Reasonable. Like a man who had nothing to hide. Judge Evers looked at the filed petition in front of her. Emergency petition for stay of probate. Filing based on trustee conflict of interest and fraudulent inducement of closure. She looked up. Counselor, you're asking me to halt a probate filing scheduled for tomorrow morning based on allegations of conflict of interest and fraud. That's a serious request. Snake nodded. Yes, Your Honor, and we have serious evidence. Proceed. Snake walked to the center of the courtroom. Your Honor, Douglas Calloway is the Carteret County Commissioner with administrative authority over the Sagebrush Youth Home budget. 7 weeks ago, he withdrew county funding from the home, citing budget constraints. That withdrawal created an operational deficit that has forced the home to reduce capacity from 22 children to 11 and cut meals from 3 per day to 2. He placed a document on the table. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m., Mr. Calloway planned to file with this court to initiate voluntary closure of Sagebrush Youth Home based on financial insolvency. As trustee of the Charitable Land Trust, he would then chair the liquidation committee responsible for selling the home's 47 acres. Judge Evers's eyes narrowed. The same individual created the deficit and benefits from the liquidation? Yes, Your Honor, but it gets worse. Snake placed a second document on the table. This is a memo of understanding between Calloway Advisory, LLC, a company owned by Mr. Calloway's wife, and Pinnacle Land Partners, a Reno development firm. The MOU was signed 8 weeks ago, 1 week before Mr. Calloway withdrew funding from Sagebrush. He let that land. The development deal is for 69 acres total. Sagebrush's 47 acres plus an adjacent 22-acre parcel that was transferred to Calloway Advisory, LLC 2 years ago. He placed a third document. The previous owner of that 22 acres was Miriam Jett, Mr. Calloway's great-aunt, age 81, diagnosed with mild dementia. Mr. Calloway became her voluntary guardian 6 months after her stroke. 3 weeks later, the property was transferred to Calloway Advisory, LLC. 8 months after that, Mrs. Jett died. The courtroom was silent. The MOU with Pinnacle Land Partners lists a transaction facilitation fee of $431,200, payable to Calloway Advisory, LLC upon closing. The deal doesn't close without both parcels. The elderly aunt's parcel was obtained through questionable guardianship. The Sagebrush parcel is being forced into liquidation through manufactured insolvency. Judge Evers looked at Douglas. Mr. Calloway, do you have counsel present? Douglas stood. Slowly. His face was still calm. Reasonable. Your Honor, I was notified of this hearing less than an hour ago. I haven't had time to retain representation, but these allegations are, do you deny the existence of the Memo of Understanding with Pinnacle Land Partners? Douglas paused, just for a second. Your Honor, that MOU is a preliminary discussion document. It's not a binding. Do you deny that you withdrew county funding from Sagebrush Youth Home 7 weeks ago? The county had budget constraints. I made a difficult decision in the interest of. Do you deny that you chair the liquidation committee for the Sagebrush Land Trust? Another pause. That's a standard appointment for county commissioners overseeing charitable. Judge Evers held up a hand. Counselor, you said you have serious evidence. I've seen the documents. What else do you have? Snake nodded, pulled out his phone. Your Honor, we have a voicemail left by Mr. Calloway on Tuesday night, November 23rd, at 11:23 p.m. The message was left on the phone of Cade Harlow, a member of the Hells Angels Nevada chapter who was investigating the Sagebrush closure at the time. He tapped the screen, set the phone on the table, pressed play. Douglas Calloway's voice filled the courtroom. Harlow, or whoever finds this, doesn't matter. I know who you are, and I know why you were on 376. The land records you pulled from the registry? There's nothing there that changes anything. That trust closes on Friday. Probate court, 9 a.m. Nothing you can do about it now. Douglas went still. And here's what you need to understand. The sheriff's department has logged your little ride as a single-vehicle accident. No witnesses. Deer strike, most likely. That's the report. If you're alive, which I'm betting you're not, you walk away from Sagebrush. You walk away from Ember Creek. And you stay walked away. Because the next time someone asks questions about that land, the answer is going to cost more than a set of handlebars. Friday, 9 a.m. It's done. The voicemail ended. Judge Evers looked at Douglas. His face had changed. The calm was gone. The reasonable mask had slipped. Your Honor, is that your voice on that recording, Mr. Calloway? Douglas opened his mouth, closed it. That recording is out of context. Is that your voice? Yes. Judge Evers leaned back in her chair. Counselor, you said Mr. Harlow was investigating the closure. Where is he now? Hawthorne Regional Hospital, Your Honor. Right fibula fracture, head laceration, multiple contusions. He's been there since this afternoon. His motorcycle went off Route 376 at milepoint 4.7 on Tuesday evening. The same evening Mr. Calloway left that voicemail. Snake placed a photograph on the table. Then another. Then a third. These are crash site evidence items collected and preserved by a material witness, a taillight fragment from a 2022 Cadillac Escalade, a monogrammed cufflink with the initials DC, and a clay impression of the tire tread found at the crash site. All three items match Mr. Calloway's personal vehicle. He looked at Douglas. Mr. Harlow didn't have a deer strike, Your Honor. He had a deliberate vehicular assault. Douglas's hands were on the table now, clenched. That's speculation. You can't prove... Judge Evers held up a hand again. Mr. Calloway, I'm not here to determine criminal liability tonight, but I am here to determine whether your probate filing tomorrow morning should proceed. She looked at the documents in front of her, at the phone, at the photographs. You have a demonstrable financial conflict of interest. You manufactured the insolvency you're citing as grounds for closure. You have a pattern of questionable asset transfers involving a vulnerable family member, and you left a voicemail threatening a man who is now hospitalized with injuries consistent with vehicular assault. She picked up her gavel. The emergency stay is granted. The probate filing scheduled for 9 a.m. tomorrow is halted pending a full investigation into conflict of interest, fraudulent inducement, and pattern of abuse. This matter is referred to the Nevada Attorney General's office for review. Additionally, I am issuing an order freezing all transactions related to the Sagebrush Land Trust and Calloway Advisory, LLC pending resolution. She looked at Douglas. Mr. Calloway, you are advised to retain counsel immediately. This court session is adjourned. The gavel came down. Douglas stood there. The 73 bikers in the gallery didn't move. Snake folded his papers, put them in his briefcase. Then he walked past Douglas, stopped, turned. The FBI is going to want to talk to you about the interstate wire fraud elements. That MOU crossed state lines. So did the development money. You might want to mention that to your attorney when you find one. Douglas's face went white. They arrested him at his home. Friday morning, 6:47 a.m. Douglas was in his driveway, watering the flower beds along the front walk. He was wearing khakis and a polo shirt. The hose was running. The water made a soft sound on the mulch. Sheriff Grayson pulled up in a county cruiser, got out, walked up the driveway. Douglas Calloway? Douglas turned. The hose was still in his hand. "Sheriff, good morning. You're under arrest for felony vehicular assault, elder abuse, charity fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud." Douglas dropped the hose. The water kept running, pooling on the concrete. "Sheriff, there's been a mistake. I can explain. You have the right to remain silent." Two deputies moved forward. Cuffs came out. Douglas's voice went up. Wait. This is insane. I'm a county commissioner. I've served this community for... Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." The cuffs went on. "You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be appointed for you." Douglas looked at the deputies, at the sheriff, at the neighbors starting to come out onto their porches. "This is a mistake. Someone needs to call my neighbor about my mail. There's a committee meeting on Monday. Sheriff Grayson looked at him. "Mr. Calloway, you're not going to make that meeting?" They put him in the cruiser. The hose kept running in the driveway. Hawthorne Regional Hospital. Friday, 9:23 a.m. Cade was sitting up in the hospital bed. His right leg was in a cast from ankle to mid-thigh. Pins and plates. 4-hour surgery. Thursday night, his head wound had been sutured. 12 stitches. Eli sat in the chair next to the bed. He'd slept there. 4 hours. First real sleep in 4 days. The hospital doctor, Dr. Raymond Kern, 58, quiet, stood at the foot of the bed with Cade's chart. "The fibula fracture was clean. We set it properly. 6 weeks in the cast, then physical therapy for another 8. You'll have full mobility eventually, but it's going to take time." He flipped a page. "The head laceration was sutured in the field by..." He looked at Eli. "This young man, apparently. With fishing line." Tank, standing near the window, nodded. "Kid did field dressing for 3 days. Kept his core temperature stable. Rationed water. Built a wind block to cut the overnight cold." Dr. Kern looked at Eli, then at Cade. "Mr. Harlow, I need to be very clear with you. When you came in Thursday night, your core body temperature was 95.2 degrees. That's early hypothermia. Another 12 hours in that canyon without intervention, and we'd be having a very different conversation." He closed the chart. "The leg we can fix. The temperature. That's why you're alive. And according to EMT reports, the reason your temperature didn't drop below 95 was because this boy shared body heat with you for 3 nights. He looked at Eli. "Son, what you did is the reason this man is sitting up right now, instead of in the morgue." Eli didn't say anything. His hand went to the key on the shoelace. Dr. Kern set the chart down. "I've documented every injury. Timestamps, photographs. Mechanism of injury consistent with vehicular trauma. That's all going into evidence per Sheriff Grayson's request." He looked at Cade. "You're lucky. In more ways than one." Then he left. Tank walked over to Eli. Crouched down. "You okay, kid?" Eli nodded. "You hungry?" Eli hesitated. Then, "Yes." Tank stood up. "Come on. Hospital cafeteria's open. Let's get you fed." Eli looked at Cade. Cade nodded. "Go. I'll be here." Eli stood up, followed Tank to the door. Then he stopped, turned back. "Cade? Yeah. The other kids, at Sagebrush, are they okay?" Cade's voice was quiet. "Spike's got brothers watching the home. They're safe." Eli nodded. Then he left. Hell's Angels. Nevada Chapter Clubhouse, Ember Creek. Friday, 11:34 a.m. The war room was the back office. Long table, laptop open, documents spread out in organized stacks, coffee going cold in 6 different mugs. Rook sat at the laptop. His fingers moved fast across the keyboard. Spike stood behind him, arms crossed. Dagger sat across the table, 3 different property maps laid out in front of him, a red pen in his hand marking boundaries. Rook stopped typing, leaned back. Okay, I'm into Callaway Advisory LLC's banking records. Spike's eyes sharpened. How? Douglas used his county email to set up the business account. County IT security is not great. I've got 3 years of transaction history. He pulled up a spreadsheet, started scrolling. Look at this. September 14th, 2 years ago. Wire transfer. $22,000 from Callaway Advisory to Ember Creek Memory Care Center. Memo line, placement deposit, MJET. He clicked to another entry. September 21st, same year. Wire transfer. $83,000 into Callaway Advisory from First Western Title Company. Memo. Property transfer. 22 acres. Parcel 447-B. Dagger looked up from his maps. That's Miriam's land. She signed it over a week after the placement deposit was paid. Rook nodded. And it gets better. October 9th, same year. Wire transfer out. $43,800 to a travel agency in Scottsdale. Memo. Investor meetings. He looked at Spike. Douglas was spending money from a deal that hadn't closed yet. He was that confident it would go through. Spike's jaw tightened. What else? Rook scrolled further. Stopped. Here, last month. October 7th. Wire transfer. $31,400 to a Scottsdale real estate firm. Memo. Winter property deposit. He clicked to another window. A real estate listing appeared. A luxury condo. Scottsdale. Mountain views. He bought a second home before the sagebrush deal closed. The room went quiet. Then Rook said, "Wait." He clicked back to the spreadsheet, scrolled, stopped. There's another name here. A second recurring recipient. Small amounts, monthly, $500. Always on the 15th. He clicked the name. A new window opened. Odell Trosper, Deputy, Carteret County Sheriff's Department. Spike's expression darkened. The deputy who told Eli there was nothing in the canyon. Rook nodded. $500 a month for the last 18 months. $9,000 total. He clicked to another tab. And there's one more. Nadine Colburn, the HOA president who tried to call Douglas when Eli asked for help. He pulled up a transaction. November 2nd, $1,500. Memo. Community engagement consulting. Dagger set his pen down. He paid her? Looks like it. Spike walked to the window, stared out at the parking lot. Nobody spoke for 6 seconds. Then Spike turned around. Deputy Trosper is the coward. He knew. He took money to look the other way, and when a kid called 911 to report a dying man in a canyon, he buried it. He pulled out his phone. Dialed. It rang 3 times. A voice answered. Professional. Measured. Special Agent Keller. FBI Reno Field Office. Special Agent Marcus Keller arrived at the clubhouse 43 minutes later. He was mid-40s. Plain clothes, navy jacket, khakis. He looked exhausted. He'd been working a multi-state fraud case for 6 months. This was supposed to be his day off. Spike met him at the door. Keller showed his badge. Agent Keller, you called about a charity fraud with Interstate Elements. Spike nodded. Come in. They walked to the war room. Rook was still at the laptop. Dagger was still marking maps. 4 other brothers sat along the wall. silent, watching. Keller looked around, then at Spike. "I'm told you have something relevant to an ongoing investigation." "Depends on what you're investigating." Keller's expression didn't change. "Charitable trust fraud, elder financial exploitation, wire fraud involving development deals in Nevada and Arizona." Spike nodded. "Then yeah, we've got something." He gestured to the table. Keller walked over, looked at the documents, the maps, the laptop screen showing Callaway Advisory's banking records. He didn't touch anything, just looked. Then he looked at Spike. "How long has your office known about Douglas Callaway?" Spike's voice was flat. "We found out Tuesday, when he ran one of our brothers off the road and left him to die in a canyon." Keller's eyes narrowed. "Which brother?" "Kate Harlow, road captain. He's at Hawthorne Regional right now. Right leg fracture, head laceration, 3 days in a canyon before an 11-year-old found him and kept him alive." Keller pulled a notebook from his jacket, started writing. "The 11-year-old have a name?" "Eli Dunbar. He's a resident at Sagebrush Youth Home, the same home Douglas is trying to close to force a land sale." Keller stopped writing, looked up. "Sagebrush is on our list. We've been tracking charitable trust liquidations in Mineral County for 8 months. Sagebrush was flagged 3 weeks ago when the probate filing notice went public." He looked at the laptop screen, at the banking records. "But we didn't have the inside financial trail. We didn't have the MOU. And we didn't have the connection to Miriam Jett." He looked at Spike. "You're telling me you built this case in 3 days?" "We're telling you an 11-year-old built it. We're just filing the paperwork." Keller stared at him. Then he walked to the table, pulled out his phone, took photographs of every document, every map, every transaction on the screen. He looked at Rook. "Can you send me that spreadsheet?" Rook nodded. "What's your email?" Keller gave it. Rook sent the file. Keller put his phone away, looked at Spike. "I need to interview the boy, and your road captain, and I need the original evidence from the crash site. The tail light fragment, cufflink, and clay impression are in Sheriff Grayson's evidence locker. Chain of custody started Thursday night. Eli can walk you through how he collected them." Keller nodded. "Good." He paused, looked at the brothers along the wall, back at Spike. "How long has your chapter been working cases like this?" "Long enough to know when the system's moving too slow." Keller's expression shifted, just slightly. "I've been tracking Callaway for 3 months. You've been tracking him for 3 days, and you've got more actionable evidence than I do." Spike didn't smile. "We had motivation, and we had a kid who refused to let the fire go out." Keller looked at him for 3 seconds. Then he held out his hand. "I'll take it from here. But I'm going to need your cooperation. Witness statements, evidence chain documentation, medical records." Spike shook his hand. "You'll have it. But I've got one condition." "What's that?" "Eli Dunbar, the 11-year-old. When this goes to trial, I don't want him re-traumatized by depositions and cross-examination. You protect that kid, or we're done." Keller nodded. "I can work with victim services to minimize his testimony burden. But he's a material witness. I can't eliminate it completely." "Then you make sure he's got an advocate in the room. Every single time." "Deal." Keller picked up his notebook, looked at the documents one more time. "For the record," he said quietly, "Douglas Callaway's been operating in Mineral County for 12 years. He's built a network of complicity that includes law enforcement, county administration, and community leadership. People like him don't usually get caught because the system is designed to protect them." He looked at Spike. "The only reason we're having this conversation right now is because a 73-pound kid decided one man's life was worth fighting for, even when every adult around him said no. He walked to the door, stopped, turned. "You do right by that boy." Spike's voice was quiet. "That's the job." Keller left. The room was silent for 8 seconds. Then Rook closed the laptop. "Deputy Trosper's going to fold the second the FBI knocks on his door." Spike nodded. "Probably. But that's not our problem anymore." He looked at Dagger. "What's the final scope?" Dagger picked up his notes, read from the list. 2 victims confirmed. Miriam Jett, asset transfer, questionable guardianship, suspicious death. Cade Harlow, deliberate vehicular assault, attempted murder. 11 children at Sagebrush Youth Home, systematic neglect, manufactured insolvency, forced displacement. He flipped a page. Financial total, $431,200 in anticipated commission, $83,000 in previous asset transfer, $43,800 in advance spending, $31,400 in property deposit, $9,000 in payments to Deputy Trosper, $1,500 to Nadine Colburn. Total, $599,900. He looked up. Federal charges likely. Wire fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, obstruction of justice, charitable trust fraud. State charges, attempted murder, vehicular assault, child endangerment, corruption of public office. He set the notes down. If the FBI moves fast, Douglas is looking at 15 to 22 years federal. Add the state charges, he's not walking out. Spike looked at the brothers along the wall. Eli Dunbar kept a man alive for 3 days, collected evidence that's going to put a corrupt official in federal prison, stopped a $500,000 fraud, and he did it at 11 years old with a dead mechanic's toolkit and a rule about guardian bells. He paused. "We're not letting that kid go back into the system." Tank spoke from the corner. "What are you thinking?" Spike looked at him. "I'm thinking Cade's got 6 weeks until Eli ages out of priority placement. I'm thinking Cade doesn't have kids. I'm thinking he's been a road captain for 24 years, and he knows what it means to protect someone who needs protecting." He looked around the room. "I'm thinking we talk to Cade, and if Cade's willing, we help him navigate whatever it takes to give that boy a home." Nobody disagreed. Rook looked up. "What about Sagebrush? The other 10 kids?" "Judge Evers froze the trust. The probate filing's halted. The county's going to have to restore funding or answer to the Attorney General. Either way, those kids are safe for now." He walked to the door. Stopped. "But we're keeping eyes on that home until the funding is confirmed. I want a rotation. 2 brothers, 8-hour shifts. If Douglas had any partners we haven't found yet, I want to know about it before they make a move." The brothers nodded. Spike looked at his watch. "It's 11:53. Douglas Calloway was arrested 6 hours ago. The FBI has the evidence. The stay is granted. Eli's safe. Cade's stable." He looked around the room one more time. "The system failed that boy 4 times. We're not going to be the 5th. He walked out. The hospital room was too bright. Cade had been there for 11 hours. The surgery on his leg had taken 4. Pins and plates. The doctor said 6 weeks in the cast, then physical therapy for another 8. Full mobility eventually, but it would take time. Tank sat in the chair next to the bed. He'd been there since they brought Cade out of recovery. He'd brought a sandwich from the cafeteria. Turkey on wheat, the kind that came wrapped in plastic and tasted like cardboard. He set it on the tray next to Cade's bed, without saying anything. Eli sat in the other chair. His eyes were half closed. He'd slept 4 hours the night before. First real sleep in 4 days. Someone had brought him clothes from the sagebrush donation box. A clean shirt, jeans that almost fit. His jacket was folded on his lap. The key on the shoelace was still around his neck. Dr. Kern came in at 9:47 a.m. He had Cade's chart. He looked at the numbers. Then he looked at Eli. You kept his core temperature above 95 for 3 nights in a canyon in October. You know what that means? Eli didn't answer. It means you're the reason he's sitting up instead of in the morgue. Eli's hand went to the key. He touched it once. Didn't speak. Dr. Kern set the chart down. The leg fracture was clean. We set it properly. He'll walk again. The head wound needed 12 stitches, but there's no brain trauma. You did the field dressing with fishing line. Earl taught me. Earl taught you right. Dr. Kern looked at Cade. Mr. Harlow, you're lucky. In more ways than one. He left. Tank stood up, looked at Eli. Come on, kid. Let's get you fed. They went to the cafeteria. Tank ordered pancakes, eggs, bacon, orange juice. He set the tray in front of Eli. Eli looked at it. He didn't move for 3 seconds. Then he picked up the fork. He ate slowly, methodically, the way someone eats when they've been hungry for a long time and doesn't trust that the food will still be there if they stop. Tank watched. Didn't comment. When Eli finished, Tank said, More? Eli nodded. Tank brought a second plate. No one took it away. No timer, no consequence. Just food. As much as he needed. Eli ate all of it. When he was done, Tank said, Feel better? Yes. Good. They walked back to Cade's room. Spike was there, standing next to the bed. His arms were crossed. He looked at Eli. We've been talking about what happens next. Eli went still. Sagebrush Youth Home is staying open. Judge Evers's order froze the trust. The county has to restore funding or answer to the state attorney general. Either way, those kids are safe. Eli nodded once. But you're not going back there. Eli's hand went to the key again. Where? Spike looked at Cade. Cade was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You've got 6 weeks before your 12th birthday. After that, you age out of priority placement. You end up in general population, lower chance of family placement. That's what the file says. Eli didn't say anything. I don't have kids, Cade said. His voice was quiet, steady. I've been a road captain for 24 years. I know how to take care of people. I know how to keep someone safe. And I've got a house, 3 bedrooms. One of them's empty. He paused. You kept me alive for 3 days. You collected evidence that stopped a $500,000 fraud. You tried 4 times to get help from a system that failed you 4 times, and you didn't walk away. Not once. He looked at Eli directly. I'm not asking you to call me your father. I'm asking you if you want a place to stay. No expiration date, no aging out, just a room, and someone who's going to make sure you get to school and eat 3 meals and have a bed that's yours. Eli stared at him. His right hand was on the key. His left hand was clenched in his lap. What about Earl's shed? Cade's expression didn't change. What about it? The tools, the kit. Earl gave me the key. He said it was mine. I don't want to leave it. Cade looked at Spike. Spike said, We'll move it. Every tool, every kit. We'll set it up in Cade's garage. You'll have access anytime you want. Eli was quiet for 6 seconds. Then, Okay. Spike nodded, looked at Cade. I'll start the paperwork. Foster placement through the county, temporary at first, then permanent if it works. He looked at Eli. You'll have a caseworker. Someone who checks in. Makes sure you're okay. Standard procedure. But you'll be living with Cade. And the brothers will be around. Always. Eli nodded. Spike walked to the door. Stopped. Turned. The chapter raised $18,400. For you. Legal fees, school expenses, whatever you need. It's in an account. Cade's the trustee until you're 18. After that, it's yours. He left. Tank stood up, walked over to Eli, crouched down to his level. You did good, kid. Real good. And if you ever need anything, medical stuff, questions, just someone to talk to, you call me. Anytime. I mean it. He handed Eli a card. His number was written on the back in black ink. Eli took it, put it in his jacket pocket. Tank stood up, looked at Cade. I'll check in tomorrow. He left. The room was quiet. Cade looked at Eli. You don't have to decide everything right now. We've got time. Eli nodded. He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the parking lot. The bikes were still there. Rows of them, black and chrome, silent. He reached into his jacket, pulled out the Guardian bell. Cade's bell. The one he'd found in the canyon on day 1. He walked back to the bed, set it on the tray. I kept it for you. Cade picked it up, closed his hand around it. Thank you. Eli nodded once. Then he sat back down in the chair, closed his eyes. And for the first time in 4 days, he felt safe. 3 weeks later, Cade stood in the doorway of Earl's old tool shed. It wasn't at Sagebrush anymore. The brothers had dismantled it piece by piece, moved it to Cade's property, rebuilt it in the garage. Same walls, same workbench, same tools hanging in the same order Earl had kept them. Eli was inside, working on something small. A carburetor, maybe. Cade couldn't see from this angle. The boy's hands moved with precision. No hesitation. Earl's teaching still running in his body. Cade didn't go in. He just watched. What he felt was not pride. It was the specific grief that lives alongside relief, the understanding that what was taken cannot be fully returned, only worked around. Eli would carry this. The canyon, the 3 days, the 4 rejections, the voicemail. All of it. But he would carry it with someone who understood what it meant to protect people when the system said no. Cade turned away, walked to his bike. The Guardian bell was back on the frame, right where it belonged. He checked his mirrors once. The light in the garage was still on. He pulled out onto the road. 16 months after everything changed, Eli stood in the Mineral County Courthouse. He wasn't there for Douglas's sentencing. That had happened 9 months earlier. 22 years federal, elder abuse, charity fraud, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, attempted murder. The judge had been specific. No parole eligibility until year 16. Eli was there for something else. The Sagebrush Youth Home Charitable Trust had been restructured. New board, independent oversight, county funding restored in full. The home was operating at full capacity again. 22 kids, 3 meals a day, volunteers allowed, and the trust had created a scholarship fund for kids aging out of the system, named after Earl Trimble. Eli was the first recipient. He stood at the podium. 11 people in the gallery, mostly brothers, a few Sagebrush staff, the new trust director. He read from a prepared statement. Short. 4 sentences. Earl Trimble taught me that tools are only useful if you know how to use them. He taught me that evidence stays with you. He taught me that quiet is how you buy time when you don't have anything else to spend. I'm using this scholarship to study mechanical engineering, so I can teach someone else what Earl taught me. He folded the paper, sat down. Rook was in the back row. He'd brought something, a small wooden box, engraved with Earl's initials. He handed it to Eli after the ceremony. Found this in the shed. Thought you should have it. Eli opened it. Inside, Earl's dog tags. Vietnam. 1969 to 1972. He closed the box, held it against his chest. Thank you. Rook nodded. Left. Eli walked to Cade's truck. Got in. Cade looked at him. How'd it go? Good. You ready? Eli nodded. They drove home. Eli Dunbar walked into a county social services office in Carson City, Nevada. Now, he was 17, high school senior, 3 months from graduation. He'd been doing volunteer work at the county youth shelter for 2 years, mechanical repair, bike maintenance, teaching kids basic tools. He'd also been sitting in on intake interviews. That's where he saw her. 9 years old, thin, dark circles under her eyes, clothes that didn't fit right, hands that moved too carefully, like she was used to breaking things by accident. She sat across from the caseworker, answered questions in single words, looked at the floor. The caseworker asked if she had family, any relatives, anyone who could take her. She shook her head. The caseworker made notes, said they'd find a placement. Temporary, probably. Group home until something permanent opened up. Eli recognized the look. He'd worn it for 3 years. That combination of terror and hope and exhaustion. The face of someone who has been failed enough times to stop expecting anything, but hasn't quite given up yet. He stood up, crossed the room. The caseworker looked up. Eli, this is a private... I know what it looks like, Eli said quietly. He looked at the girl. I was in the system for 4 years. Someone pulled me out. Someone who didn't have to. Someone who just decided I was worth protecting. He crouched down. Eye level. What's your name? The girl looked at him, then at the caseworker, then back. Maya. Maya, I'm Eli. I volunteer here. I also know someone who might be able to help. He's a foster parent, approved through the county. He's got space, and he's good at keeping people safe. He looked at the caseworker. I want to call Cade. The caseworker hesitated, then nodded. Eli pulled out his phone, dialed. Cade answered on the second ring. Hey, I'm at the county office. Carson City. There's a girl here, 9 years old, no family. She needs a placement. I think you should meet her. A pause. Then, I'll be there in 40 minutes. Eli ended the call, looked at Maya. He's coming. Maya's eyes were wide. Who is he? Someone who knows what it feels like to be left behind, and someone who doesn't let people stay that way. Cade sat in his garage. It was late. Past midnight. The house was quiet. Eli was asleep upstairs. Maya, the new placement, temporary for now, maybe permanent if the county approved it, was asleep in the second bedroom. Cade held Earl's guardian bell, the one Eli had kept for 3 days in the canyon, the one that had started everything. He turned it over in his hands. Brass. Small. Worn. He thought about the line Eli had drawn in the dirt on day 1. Water. Shelter. Signal. Wait. The boy had done exactly that. He'd kept the rules. He'd stayed. He'd refused to let the fire go out. And now he was doing it again. For someone else. Cade set the bell down on the workbench, next to Earl's dog tags, next to the key on the shoelace Eli had given him 6 months ago, when he'd said, "It was Earl's. Earl's gone. I think it should belong to someone who'll use it." Cade hadn't put it on a shoelace. He kept it in his vest pocket, used it to carry the shed key when he came back to work with Eli. He stood up, walked to the doorway, looked up at the house. 2 lights on. 2 kids safe. He didn't feel pride. He felt the weight of what it takes to protect people in the world as it exists. The understanding that the system moves slow and breaks often, and sometimes the only thing standing between a child and the machinery that grinds them down is one person who decides to say no. He turned off the garage light, walked inside.
I think about Eli's hand on that key. Not when he was standing in front of 210 motorcycles. Not when he played the voicemail for Cade. Not even when he testified at Douglas's trial 9 months later. I think about the moment 3 weeks after the rescue, when he walked into Earl's rebuilt shed for the first time and just stood there, silent, his hand on the key around his neck. Because Earl had been dead for 5 months when Eli kept Cade alive. Earl didn't know he was teaching Eli to save a specific man in a specific canyon. He just taught what he knew, and it landed exactly where it needed to. Some of you have been Earl for someone, and you don't know it yet. Not the dramatic rescue, not the 210 motorcycles. The mechanic who showed a boy how to build a wind block, and why the bell goes on the frame, and where to press clay when a line is leaking. The person whose lessons are still running in someone else's body long after they're gone. I think about whoever is listening to this right now. Maybe you're cooking. Maybe you're trying to fall asleep. Maybe you're just filling the silence while you drive. Some of you already know a child who needs what Eli needed. Not rescue. Just someone who refuses to look away. Here's what I'm asking you to do, and I know it's uncomfortable. If you know a child in residential care, a nephew, a student, a neighbor's kid, and something about their situation feels wrong, do not call the facility first. Call your state's social services ombudsman directly. Every state has one. They receive complaints that bypass the facility's administrative chain entirely. One call. You don't have to know the child's name. You just need the address. Earl's boots are still in Eli's closet. 2 sizes too large, triple laced, the leather cracked at the toe. Eli doesn't wear them anymore, but he hasn't thrown them out either. If this story meant something to you, hit subscribe, and in the comments tell me this. What's one thing someone taught you that you're still using? Not a life lesson, something specific, a skill, a trick, a way to fix something broken. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because Eli stood on that canyon rock with a signal flare and refused to let 210 people pass until he verified their intentions. He was 11 years old, he weighed 73 pounds, and he understood something most adults spend their whole lives avoiding. The most dangerous thing you can do for another person is exactly nothing. Box Elder Canyon is quiet now. The crash site is unmarked. The seasonal creek dried up weeks ago. But if you stood there at the right angle, you'd still see the wind block. 22 degrees from the rock face. The Nevada angle. Earl built it that way. Eli remembered. And a stranger walked out alive.